to meet. Yeah, I'm going to talk about productivity versus innovation rather than productivity and innovation, and just really pick up on, I'm actually in a pretty lucky position right now because my talk has practically been done for me by everybody that spoke before me. I'm just going to pick up on a lot of things that happen to be pulling together here. And I think if I was going to highlight what I'd like you to take away, it's really just be careful what you measure when it comes to productivity and innovation. Specifically, Nick said at the beginning that very few people know what we mean by productivity. Jennifer, you said it was about taking more out than you put in, so making sure that your input's less than your outputs, so you're more efficient, more productive. But that's putting quite an emphasis on an efficiency-driven model that's input-output oriented. Innovation doesn't really work like that. What you put in is not necessarily what you get out. And as Ram mentioned literally seconds ago, there are a lot of failures. And so if you have a lot of failures and you need to invest in something that you don't know what the outcome is going to be, how is that productive? So just pose that problem for a sec. Let me just make sure I went to the right slide. Yeah, okay, so the productivity problem. Funnily enough, I have no idea what productivity means either. So I decided to do what everybody else does and ask ChatGPT or Google. Productivity is low and sluggish in the UK. We've known this for over a decade now. It's been a recurring problem. A low productivity economy is bad because it affects the population's living standards. That includes real wages, which right now is a major pinch point because of the cost of living crisis, inflation, etc., etc. So, for instance, some statistics I came across, 1974 to 2008, the average growth rate was 2.3%. From 2008 onwards to 2020, it was 0.5%, the growth of the UK economy. It's not very good, is it? So it gives us a really worrying signal. So the ambition to grow the economy in Leicestershire by 5% above national average means a growth rate of at least 6% per se. Yeah? So some thoughts. If you look at the way that's been described, then it's an economic problem. It's been described as a labour productivity problem. So this is from the National Institute of Economic and Social Research. How much economic value is generated at the national level by the amount of work supplied by the country's workforce? So workers do work, and the amount is produced, that's how productive you are. A standard measure of labour productivity is output per hour, and productivity can be loosely described as a measure of how smart we work instead of how hard we work. Okay, who cares? Yeah. What is productivity to you? So that's what we're being measured against, but do we care? Is that actually important to your business? What is your measure of productivity? What does it mean for your business to be better in taking its inputs and creating outputs? What does it mean if we factor in innovation? Yeah? What happens when we turn around failing businesses? Are we trying to make them more profitable? Or are we just trying to make them survive? Yeah? It's a whole different kettle of fish. So, you know, to be kind of nice about things, as business people, do we care about the aggregate growth in labour productivity of the UK? Should we? That's a moral question. I'm not going to say anything about that, right? Right now, you're here as part of this LEP event, and the LEP really wants you to care about that question because its objective is to grow the local economy by 5% above national average. So we need some goal alignment going on here, right? So one part is to reflect on your own goals. You know, what is it that you're aiming to achieve quarterly or annually or in your 3 to 5 year strategic plan? Or, you know, going back to an example a moment ago, you know, what matters to you on a daily basis? You know, at what time in the day will you be working on your CRM systems instead of firefighting your sales pipeline and trying to make sure that you get products out the door, you know, or complete the service to the required standard? In other words, what matters to you can often be quite short to medium term in terms of how are we best dealing with the customer? How are we delivering what the customer wants? Yeah? So in this sense, what do your stakeholders want and expect of you? I think the presentation just now by Ram is incredibly insightful about how you take consumers, put them in the situation of the business and let them both realize the problem of the business and that the business better realizes the problem. So for instance, with electrification and electrification of vehicles. And why does any of this matter? Well, I would argue it's because productivity and innovation might compete with each other. One of the things that we haven't said a great deal about this morning is what kind of innovation do you actually want? What innovation is important to your business? So we have process innovation, which I think Sirius is part of. Do you want product innovation? Do you want to change something in your products, add features, add better quality, or do you want to create something totally new? If you want to create something new to the market, which I believe was in the LEP's description of innovation, then you need to be willing to fail. And failure carries costs, and costs that can deplete your resources, which by definition makes you less productive. One of the problems is that as a business, most of your resources are quite specific to your organization. It's specific to the products and services you're making. They're not easy to take those resources off one thing and put them on something very different so that you innovate something truly new. So most of the time when we say innovation, it's really about refining, making incremental improvements to cost, to quality, to features. And that's good. That makes us more productive, makes us more competitive. It also makes us vulnerable to someone who might come along and do things very differently. So for example, using hydrogen instead of using batteries, if we're so fixated with using battery technology. Now, what I want to really emphasize then is this bit here. What you measure is what you get. By trying to emphasize that productivity is different and innovation is different, you then need to think about, well, how do I measure performance in my business and how do I reward it? So I think this taps with something that Amit identified, one of the 8 essential keys to innovation, is you've got to think about how you're rewarding people. How do you reinforce that behavior? So, don't control for one thing, but reward based on another, because the reward criteria will take priority. That's the real signal to your employees as to what you actually care for. So for instance, if you prioritize, say, quarterly financials or 12-month sales or 12 months profitability, what you will get is a focus on cost control. So cost optimization, which is a key part of productivity. So that's fine because we need it. The counterbalance is that, I think Amit said this, is that we need to innovate while also having cost optimization. So if we're rewarding 12 months profitability, for example, what is the easiest short-term measure to increase profitability? Over to you guys. Say again?
Cost reduction.
Yes, cost reduction. How do we reduce costs? Yeah, cut marketing, cut R&D. Emphasize other things. My point is, it's a cost reduction strategy. It's how much can I throw out? Not what I'm investing in. It's not an investment-driven problem. It's a reduction-driven problem. Sticking to or coming in under budgets, that's another example, ROA, etc., etc. Basically, what I'm trying to emphasize here is that with short-term financial targets, you're at risk of where innovation is relegated against hitting targets or hitting numbers. Just be careful that when you do have a control system that's based on a lot of tick boxes, you're exonerating the responsibility of your employees to think about your future. All they have to do is tick the boxes you've given them and job's done. They don't have to think about innovation in a situation like that. On the other hand, you can loosen these controls. For instance, 20% of 12 months sales to come from new products. Then you're changing the benchmark. Or 30% of sales in 3 years from new products, or new brands, new categories, new patents, return on investment rather than assets. And therefore, you're creating the scope for innovation to actually matter and to be reinforced within your business. For instance, one of the things that where's Jake? Oh, okay. I'm not going to disparage, so it's okay. So one of the things that Jake said during the panel, which caught my attention, was that, well, if innovation succeeds, why wouldn't I continue investing in it? Absolutely. But the problem is, what happens when your innovations fail? How do you sustain a culture of innovation when you've had failures, even if they're just trip-ups? How do you embrace that? Right, let me carry on with this for a sec. One thought then is I actually got into an argument. Well, I didn't get into an argument. Somebody started an argument with me. That's different. Despite my youthful looks and floppy hair, this is something I've been doing for a while. And I used to, my first journey in this career was at the University of Nottingham in 2004. And I used to teach on PIRA's high growth masterclass. And I used to do the bit that was on building the innovative organization, and therefore, how do you control, how do you reward for innovation? And I got into an argument with somebody, he got into an argument with me, sorry. He said, well, we can't get rid of budgets. I said, I never told you to get rid of budgets. I just warned you of their consequences. So, for instance, let's take innovation. Why not innovate costs out of your business rather than thinking about how do I strip costs out by reducing my investments or making cost optimizations? How can I improve that? So process innovation, for instance, with my boys here from Sirius. So think about those. That is a mindset issue, as Sonia, you kindly mentioned on the panel. It's how you think about the problem. The strategist will look at it and think, how do I defend myself? How do I protect myself? The entrepreneur will think, what's the opportunity? And so you can innovate costs out of the business, not necessarily strip them out. Right, I will pause there and say thank you. I will just emphasize that if you, well, it's not emphasize, it's a plug. Everybody else is plugging. I might as well do one as well. So one of the things that I run is an innovation podcast. It's about entrepreneurship, strategy, innovation, and also how you manage uncertainty, which is a lot of what we've been saying today. You can find me on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon, Audible, and SoundCloud. I interview entrepreneurs, startups, business people, advisors, and see what have they learned and what can we learn from them. So if you'd like to learn more, do have a look. It was one of FeedSpot's top UK innovation podcasts. Yay! I feel happy for that. But more importantly, if you want to be my guest, then by all means reach out to me because I'm always interested in talking to good people. Thank you.